So the new year is about to be here. In today's video, I'm just gonna go over what I plan on doing this new year and like the way I'm gonna approach it to try to get the most return on investment. It's gonna be a hyper competitive video here. So this is not your cup of tea. You can go and click off here. But essentially, I'm gonna give you perspective on what happened this past year for me personally, and then my intentions for the year coming up, 2024. I noticed I use the term hyper competitive. Not too sure why. I think that's like my way of basically saying that if I do things that seem a little bit like excessive, for example, like doing 12 TikToks a day, like that's just like my way of translating that. But as you see on my Twitter here, basically for me, January to March, I'm going to go like full in. I plan on doing it for the entire year. But to give more perspective, essentially my goal for this next year is to push myself to the limit in the sense of trying to see how much return on investment I can get for 1 year. And I'm going to document the entire thing. So if you are familiar with this channel, or if you've been familiar with this channel, Happy New Year. But also, I've been going at this thing for, as you see from this chart here, let me go and zoom down, y'all, so I'm not so big. As you see from this chart here, I didn't start uploading till like end of February. And then as you see here, I basically started taking YouTube more serious in around April. So then from the chart, as you see, it keeps going, whatever. Point being is I haven't even hit a year yet when it comes to content creation. But from the 9 months I've been going at it, it's become apparent to me that I can actually make this part of the business I start built, or part of the business plan, or part of the structuring of the business, or however you want to say it. Point being is this though. I realized that there's something here, and therefore I'm going to lean in a little bit more. But beyond all that though, let's go ahead and just dive in. Strategies I'm approaching 2024 with, and strategies that you can start implementing yourself in the context of really trying to get a ton of return on investment in this coming year. Okay, what I'm about to say right now is going to probably be very cliche, but kind of goals, okay? So like basically stuff we're shooting for, it should be not that big, but it should be number one. So our number one thing we need to do, set up, draw out, just honestly, I don't even write it out personally. Like I have like a whole separate thing for writing out stuff. When it comes to goals, it's kind of just like, it's more like a visualization thing. But for me, for perspective, my goals just right off the bat, specifically in the context of business and everything that's occurring here, is I want to get 100,000 on TikTok, I want to get 100,000 on YouTube, and I want to get 100 active paid users of the TubeStand platform. If you're not familiar with the TubeStand platform, this is a software I'm developing here. This is version 1. I'm working on version 2 currently. Really exciting stuff. I plan on diving more into that in these coming months. Super cool stuff, y'all. I've realized that basically once you build out the car, which is kind of the entire structure of the software, adding additional stuff when it comes to front-end development, like how it looks aesthetically, is super easy. And adding more features is like very much like, oh, that makes sense, add it. That makes sense, add it. So saying that, I'm going to dive more into that because I know a part of my people that do follow me here on YouTube really love the idea of software and creating software. So I'm going to, obviously cater more to that because honestly, I personally like doing it too. That being said, though, number one is goals. So we need to set goals for ourselves. That's obvious, but don't be cliche about it. Just be very, very, if the goal is true to yourself and you actually want to achieve that, you shouldn't even need to write it down. It should become second nature to you. It should become like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I do want to do that. So stuff like that. Next thing, habits. How we want to approach 2024. Okay, so if we are approaching 2024 with the perspective that we want to get as much return on the time we spend in 2024, then we need to think optimally, how do we take our engine, our physical body, and optimize it for productivity? So saying that, there is going to be a couple ways we go about this. And everything I say here today, I'm doing myself, or I have been doing myself, and I plan on doing it more in 2024. Also want to point out, I hadn't really leaned into everything I'm about to say here heavily until probably September of this year still, not last year. September of this year is when I leaned in heavily and I saw a bunch of return in the context of everything I'm doing here when it comes to building out software, content creation, and just creativity and ideas flourishing. That being said, number one, and I took this for granted growing up, and I didn't realize actually you do get a return on investment. You do get percent more productivity. Let's say there's a scale here, right? Let's say like in theory you can max out at 100% productivity. So like your mental capacity, your physical capacity, there is some level of maxing out. So for example, if I drank the night before, the next day, there is literally no way for me to achieve 100% max productivity because of the fact that I've inhibited myself by drinking the night before. That being said, everyone has their own version of 100%. My version of 100% when it comes to software development is going to be different than your version of 100% when it comes to software development. That being said, your version of 100% when it comes to XYZ skill is going to be different than my version of 100%. But everyone has their levels of 100%. So how do we access our 100% and how do we optimally ensure that we can at least get the most use out of this? This was a long way of me just saying exercise. Now, your relationship with exercising is going to be different than my relationship, and I'm just going to put exa. It's going to be different than my relationship with exercise. If you follow this channel for a while, you already know what I'm about to say. If you've never seen this channel before and you've gotten up to this point, hello, I'm Corbin. I guess you got through the first 30 seconds. But that being said, exercise is important, but how you approach exercise is more important. Give yourself thresholds. I don't care what fitness guru tells you, whatever social media influencer you watch on working out. End of the day, the most important thing about working out is that you just show up to the gym and work out, or show up to however capacity of working out it is. It's just showing up. That's ground one, rule one. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter what anybody says. End of the day, are you even showing up? So in order to achieve, you actually, and this is me talking to myself as well. Like I used to be bad at this because my original relationship with the gym was very much, I need to go there. I need to do 6 different sets or 6 different workouts, 4 sets each, cardio for 30 minutes, sauna after. Like I was there for like 2 hours. But the problem with that was basically I didn't stick to it because it became more of like, holy smokes, do I want to spend 2 hours of my day doing this? But then when I switched my relationship with exercising to more of like, okay, I'm not doing this for aesthetic reasons. I'm not doing this for, like me personally, I could care less if I lift. Actually, no, maybe I do care a little bit if I do lift more. I don't know. Bench more. But once I changed my relationship from that to more of like what I've realized from my past experience is if I go to the gym and work out for at least 30 minutes, I do get a bump in productivity. Now, that being said, the bump in productivity, I'm speaking from all personal here, me personally. And if you're familiar with the channel, then you know what I'm about to say. If something can give you X%, obviously think long-term horizon, but if something can give you X% more productivity, and it obviously is not harming you in the long term, or it isn't like short-term type of X%, but if something in the long term can give you X% more productivity in a day, you're incentivized to do that. So me personally, even if exercise only increased my productivity by 1%, I'd still do it. But how I view exercise is it's increasing my productivity by at least 10%. Therefore, it's become structured into my routine or my daily day. For me personally, I used to be a night owl. I used to work a lot during the night and basically wake up late. Everyone is their own person. Now I don't even know what they call it, a morning owl, a morning bird, whatever it may be. Now I wake up pretty early, so I kind of fit in my exercise at like from 7 to 7:30 a.m. I wake up at 6:30, kind of proceed from there. But that's the first step here. Because the name of the game of this video is how do we get the most return on investment in 2024? First step here is exercise. Hands down, give yourself thresholds. For me personally, here's my new threshold. My new threshold is this. Simply go to the gym, do 4 different workouts based off your experience or learn different workouts. Do 4 different workouts, 3 sets each, and leave. So if I get done in 20 minutes, I'm gone. If I get done in 30 minutes, I'm gone. That's it. I think as I get older, I'll probably add to it, change it, whatever it may be. All I know for now is that the ROI I get from exercise when it comes to productivity has incentivized me to approach it that way. Therefore, when I go to the gym, it isn't like I'm going to the gym for aesthetic reasons. It's going to the gym because I know when I leave the gym, I'm getting an X% increase in productivity. So that leads us to number 2. Everyone has their own biome, their own biology, their own way of approaching life. For me personally, number 2, what increased my productivity by, I can't even put a number on it, I'd say maybe 5 to 10%, maybe 5 to 15, honestly. This might be a little heavy, But for me, I don't know if it's called, if you can't tell, I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm just a dude that works out and eats food in the context of what I'm about to say. But what I found personally is one small meal in the morning and one like decently sized meal during like dinner time. So that kind of structures out to basically, in theory, one meal a day. So what I found personally is that when I eat something small before the gym, actually there's studies that basically prove that if you eat before the gym, it actually encourages more muscle growth. That being said, someone else is going to say the exact opposite. And, a lot of these studies in the fitness world do conflict. Just as a side note, if you want to lose weight, just less calories in, more exercising, sometimes you just got to make it simple. But what I found personally is that, and this might change on different people, but if I find it very hard to be productive or work a lot when I'm on a full stomach. I get into food comas. Personally, I get into food comas. If I have a big breakfast, a big lunch, and a big dinner, I am going to be sluggish throughout the day. What I found personally to increase my productivity is basically having a small meal. For me, rice cakes, rice cake, yeah, rice cake and peanut butter. That's it. Don't eat till 4 or 5 p.m. And you might be asking yourself, well, what happens in between? Just a ton of water and a ton of coffee. That's partly why my profile is fueled by coffee. And that's also partly why the corporate logo of this company is a coffee cup with code in it. I like my coffee. Side note, I didn't actually start drinking coffee until I was 21. So I was a late bloomer to that whole game, whether that's a good thing or not. Also, side note, I like drinking it straight. Give me Americano, I'm good to go. But for me personally, this increased my productivity. I found that when I only eat one meal a day, and I eat it at 4 or 5, I'm able to basically work nonstop from that entire thing, like with no break, basically. And then post eating the food, that is when I kind of proceed on the latter half of the day where I work to basically 9 or 10 p.m. Everyone's different. Everyone has their different ways of approaching their diet. I just found me personally, that's the best way for me to approach diet for me to get a lot of effectiveness in my input. Also, that being said, some of you might be like, what do you eat at dinner? I just like having some type of meat that I cook, some type of rice, and some type of vegetable. Meat, rice, vegetable, and then on the side, sourdough with some butter. Also, keep in mind, the sugar industry was infiltrated in the 50s and was paid out by the sugar industry, there was a study done by scientists in the 50s. The sugar industry had infiltrated this study, paid off the scientists in order to ensure that the result of that study would say that fat was worse for you than sugar. That's not true. Look it up. I'm not joking there, so you can check out the study. That being said, your relationship with food can be very much like, for me personally, I'll put butter on my bread. I'll cook with butter. Like, don't have a negative relationship with some of these food items that may have been demonized in the past due to big sugar. That was a big sidetrack, but keep that in mind. That being said, though, throughout the day, water and proceed. So we got exercise, we got diet. Notice how this is all physical. I haven't even gotten into mental yet, but this is part of what creates your ability to be productive. You have to train your body and train your mind. It's not just one-sided. I used to be very toxic when it came to this. I used to be very much like ignore my body and just train my mind. And I can tell you right now, from the days that I used to do that, it would lead to burnout. I would burn out because it would just be too much over time. It's not balanced. It's not a balanced life. So those two are very important. And I think it goes without saying, what I'm about to say next is pretty obvious. Also, really cool about the human body is that it will naturally wake up at times once you get into a routine. You told me when I was 17, hey, by the way, you're waking up at 6:30 a.m. naturally now. I'd be like, you're lying to me. But it happens now. So obviously, sleep. This is important. Name of the game when we're creating ingredients for the human body to maximize our productivity is we need the thing that basically regenerates our body. A really great analogy, I'm not sure if I'm using that in the right terminology in that context. A really great analogy that I've heard about this is, have you ever seen hockey? Have you ever seen ice rinks? Or have you ever been ice skating before? Your mind before you go to sleep is basically, when a bunch of people just use the ice rink, there's a bunch of slashes, marks, ice everywhere. It's a complete mess. It's harder to skate on it because of, like, little divots and stuff like that. You can fall easier. But at night, when we sleep, it's like that ice rink driving car thing is going through the ice rink and smoothing it out to reset it. So when you go back on that ice rink, it's completely clean, completely like sleek and ready to go. That's how you gotta think of sleep. This is important. This is also dependent on your biology in the sense of some people can basically go on 6 hours of sleep. Like, for example, I could probably go at 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Like pretty natural stuff, like the stuff you see in the statistics growing up. Some people go at 6, some people need 9. Whatever it may be, everyone's body's different, but you gotta hit something where you are basically in some type of rhythm where your body knows reliably that you go to bed at this time and you wake up at this time, because let's just, kind of cut out all the extra stuff here and get our brain in tune with our routine. Because once you start waking up naturally at 6:30, everything else starts becoming more natural in the process of your routine. Now, one thing I want to say is if you want to understand how to divulge, really structure out a routine in the context of building out ecosystems, like a lot of stuff I talk about here, you can check out that video here. But that being said, sleep. This covers most, and obviously there is some stuff I haven't brought up here, like obviously less drinking, less junk food, less stuff of this nature. But that should be, I should be able to not say that, and that kind of information here. So that being said, these are the factors that I use personally, you can start using personally, and basically start tuning in to your body and physical body and maxing it out, so then we can start really maxing out our brain, because that's what gets everything going, right? That being said, how do we approach the brain side? Now that we know the physical side, how do we approach the brain side when it comes to productivity? So in order to approach the brain side, you need to do two main things every single day in generality. Now, I'm speaking in the perspective right now that you are currently in the stage where I will call the runway stage, where you have an Easter egg build up, where you gave yourself a runway of a year to essentially approach said thing. If you haven't reached the runway stage yet, and maybe you're still actively working a job, this won't apply as much because of the fact that you are still obligated for a set amount of time per day for your attention to be directed towards something. Therefore, it's going to be harder for you to access something like this. So you'll only be able to do one of these things. But if you're in the runway stage, where basically you saved up enough money where you can survive on rent, food, you're going to live at the bare minimums, and you got basically a quote unquote runway. Now, everything I'm saying here, although also, by the way, can work with a job as well, it's just going to be a lot harder due to the fact that you're split divulgence. Under the perspective, you're in the runway stage. I know I said that 100 times. Maybe I need to go to the airport. But under that perspective, you need to categorize in 1 and 2. What's 1 and 2, Corbin? 1 is do things, and I kind of alluded this in the ecosystem video, but do things that you know for a fact are guaranteeing you return. No matter what, it's guaranteeing you return. What do you mean? Here are some things that I'm referring to. For example, one thing is just creating content. We know there's guaranteed return no matter what on that. Another thing is if you're in the context of getting income, working contracts with companies, maybe using Upwork, maybe using Fiverr, whatever it may be, accepting contracts where maybe you only know 40 to 50% of how to do it, but by getting paid, you're also learning the other 50% of how to do that contract. So the next time you do another contract for another company, you get paid and you know how to do it faster. So this is what I'm talking about, or working on a very much client basis in the context of an AI automation agency, stuff of this nature, where you know it works, you know you'll get a return, basically income is coming in. So my version of this first stage here is this. Me talking to you right now, my content. One thing if you haven't noticed by now is basically the way I'm approaching this content stuff is like very just like, it's me, y'all. So I'm gonna speak black, I'm gonna just speak my mind. And you can see that on TikTok and Twitter and stuff of this nature. But the point is that number 1 is this for me. This is guaranteed. But this can also be guaranteed for you if you want to do this as well when it comes to content. One thing I've realized with content is basically the biggest thing hindering anyone in content is that no one knows who the heck you are. No one knows who you are. So why would you give them the time of day, right? But find your number 1. I don't know what your number 1 is, but find it. Whatever your number 1 is, it's going to be something that is guaranteed return, And it's up the avenue of what you want to do. Like you're learning something new. You're learning something within the realm of what you care about and what you want to do. So then what is number two? What are you talking about? What is number two? Number two, I want you to tap into your creative side. Number two is high risk, high reward. Number one is low risk, but you're gaining a lot of information. So it is still high reward, but it's low risk. The reward in that context isn't like necessarily, how do I say this? Basically, the reward in that context is more of like you're gaining something new, you're getting paid for doing it, but it's more guaranteed investments. Like I know if I put this much work into this, I know I'm gonna get this much out. Like I'm not worried about necessarily going down the wrong path and wasting a lot of time. But in the second half of the day, you got to take the opportunity to work on number two, which is your creative side, which is the side where it's like, I could spend 4 months on this and it could really pan out or it could really not pan out. But the point is that I took the steps towards tapping into my creative side, really pushing the limits of like, is this possible? Can I do this? I really want to try this. So your question might be, what is that for me? That's TubeStamp. That's the software I'm developing. That's 100% high risk, high reward because of the fact that I'm spending probably 8-9 hours a day on that thing, developing it for months. And the next 3 months, I'm about to go really heavy into it as well, with little to no inclination of whether there's going to be a payout or not. You know what I mean? But the reason I'm doing it is because I know I'm at least exercising that creative muscle of mine. Like the amount of stuff I'm adding to 2.0 and the amount of stuff that I'm realizing that could be added to the software just through developing it is like, I find super advantageous, like super beneficial. And it's allowed me to flex that creative muscle. And that's why I call it number two. Because who knows? Is it going to be $1 million company? Or is this just going to be something where maybe only 50 to 200 people actively use it in 2 years? I don't know. All I know is that I like spending half my day on that, as that's more of my high risk, high return investment, while the first half of the day is more of like, hey, I know something's here. I know something's working. Let's keep leaning in. So that kind of concludes today's video when it comes to 2024 and how you should view it. We need to focus on our physical body to just max out our productivity at a physical level. And then how do we mentally approach it with our brains? We need to work on stuff that gives us guaranteed return, but also work on stuff that doesn't give us guaranteed return. But if there is return, it is like 100x of what the original input was. Stuff of this nature. So if you liked today's video, make sure to leave a like. If you got to this far, then you are ready for 2024. So I'll see you. My other goal for 2024 is, obviously, if you can't tell already, I'm gonna try to do daily videos for the entire year 2024. So every single day there'll be a new YouTube video from me. We'll see how that goes. But without further ado, y'all, I'll see you in the next video.
Thanks for tuning in. And yes, surprise, I'm an AI avatar. Make sure to explore more here at Corbin AI, where we demystify AI for your personal and business life. Until next time.